Thank you for watching part 1 featuring Andrew Kim, and stay tuned for part 2 here. All right, so we're gonna move on to the second half of this interview, which is how does your research impact society? Andrew, you pursue unusual research, which I believe the public takes for granted. Please discuss to us your research on SAF-MBR. First off, define what that means, and then tell us what this is and why nutrient recovery is important for the American future.
Yeah. So, my research is a bit unusual, and sometimes I have to check myself because, again, when I first started research, I was doing a lot of research on cow manure. Like, I remember one of the first days in the lab, we went to a dairy farm and we shoveled cow manure into a bucket and took it back.
I had to do that in undergrad too.
Yeah. Like, how did I get here? Like, what am I doing? I didn't see myself doing this. But it's really important to be thinking about things like waste. Particularly, I work now with a lot of wastewater, or the water that goes down your sinks and your showers and your toilets. Normally, that water gets treated at the treatment plant and then gets discharged to various water bodies. Me, as an environmental engineer, really trying to rethink that paradigm and really perceive these sort of wastewater streams as resources. Actually, they're resources that can be mined, and all the resources in the wastewater, like the carbon, the nutrients, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, they can be recovered. And it's important that we, not dispose of them, but we use them responsibly and recover the resources as we can. So the SAF-MBR stands for Staged Anaerobic Fluidized Bed Membrane Bioreactor. What that basically means, it's not important you know what it means, but what it basically means is that we're turning all of the organic material in your wastewater, so like in your poop essentially, we're turning that into renewable energy in the form of biogas, in the form of methane. So all the carbon in the wastewater, using the power of microorganisms and I shouldn't say bacteria, microorganisms, they can transform that carbon in your wastewater into methane, and we can capture that methane and use it for energy. So it's a continuation of my work in waste to energy, but really focusing on wastewater treatment. And there's a bunch of other stuff in there, not just the carbon, but like I said before, the nitrogen and the phosphorus. Those are really important nutrients for fertilizer, and it's in the wastewater and currently just being tossed and thrown away. So it's really important that we try to invest in technologies and sort of rethink this paradigm of wastewater as resourceful water. We can recover that nitrogen, recover that phosphorus, and use that as a fertilizer. We can create this sort of circular loop rather than using all these resources and throwing them away. If we can recycle them and reuse, it's a more sustainable way of living.
Great. And so you also do, I think, kind of different research, which is you also study cellulosic hydrogels and sustainable wildfire management. What is this research about, and how does it impact our livelihoods?
Yeah.
Particularly in Canada. I mean, in California. Not Canada.
I'm really excited to talk about this. I haven't been able to talk about this work really outside of my own group members. So we have collaborators in the Department of Material Science and Engineering. So I'm with Craig Riddle Environmental Engineering, and we're working with Dr. Eric Apple in Material Science. So he's created this sort of hydrogel, which is like basically this really jelly-like water. It's created from like these cellulose compounds, which are like, cellulose is everywhere. It's like it's in your plants.
Yeah.
And these silica particles, which are, silica is also everywhere. It's in your soils and it's in rocks. So these really like harmless compounds. If you mix them together, you can create this gel, and this gel has some really cool characteristics. Notably, this gel, like, it can be sprayed, it can be, it can be pumped, it can be put in a syringe and injected that way. It has these really interesting viscous properties, but most important is that they stick onto surfaces. So if you spray the gel onto a surface like a wood or grass or anything, it will stick on there for a good period of time. So these gels, they can also carry stuff too. So these gels, if you have them carry some, like a compound called ammonium polyphosphate or hydrogen phosphorus, suddenly that gel will become this fire retardant. Because how we're currently putting out wildfires in California, you'll see those helicopters just dropping a bunch of, it looks like water, but it's like red, or they're actually dropping a lot of ammonium polyphosphate or a lot of nitrogen phosphorus. Because the phosphorus really has, in addition to being a nutrient, it actually has fire retarding capabilities. So that's how we're currently, managing wildfires. And currently, we wait for a wildfire to happen, it spreads and it's burning everything, and then we call firefighters and we call the air tankers, and then they drop a bunch of phosphorus, and then the phosphorus will put it out. So with this hydrogel technology, instead of doing that, we could spray the landscape beforehand. We can make sure that the phosphorus attaches itself onto these surfaces like wood and grass, and that will actually prevent the wildfire from happening in the first place, because the fire resistance coating is already on there. My work in that original publication was to make sure that these hydrogels are they biodegradable? Are they safe? And we found that they're completely safe.
And that was published in PNAS.
That was published in PNAS.
Congrats.
In 2019. It was, again, not really me. It was mostly our collaborators. But I'm really excited for this current work because we continue collaborating with them. We had an idea to recover struvite from a wastewater treatment, which is the same compound that's in your kidney stones, basically. So your kidney stones are basically this hard rock that is mostly some magnesium, nitrogen, and phosphorus. We can basically recover kidney stones. You can imagine from this wastewater treatment plant where there's a bunch of and stuff like that. Anyways, we found that we can basically recover these kidney stones, put them in the hydrogel, and then suddenly we have kidney stone-based fire retardants. Like, really cool, because now we're sort of combining. The original point of my research was to recover nutrients, recover things like nitrogen and phosphorus, and turning trash into treasure, right? What do you then do with that? Well, we can then take the nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and then turn it into this recycled, sustainable fire retardant. And phosphorus is it's a non-renewable resource. It's currently mined. Maybe in 100 years, we might run out of phosphorus reserves. So it's important if we start thinking about ways to responsibly reuse, recycle phosphorus. And use them, like kidney stone fire retardants, whoever thought, right?
And it's such an important nutrient too, because anyone who knows ATP, that's our energy currency in the body. So
exactly. So I think the idea is that next time there's a huge wildfire, we spray a bunch of these recycled nitrogen and phosphorus. It's going to put out the fire, and then it's going to fertilize the soils, and then it's going to help restore the natural environment.
Awesome. That's a lovely way to demonstrate what environmental engineers do, which, many people aren't very sure what we do in the first place.
A lot of people think we work with like renewable energy a lot of the time, and but it's a very broad field. Not only am I working with like clean water systems, but we're also thinking about these larger systems of sustainability and how we're using the materials and ways we can be doing a lot of things more sustainably.
Awesome. Love that. And so to the last question, which is my favorite question of every interview. What misconceptions of graduate school would you like to dispel?
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about this earlier because I think my parents have a lot of misconceptions on
Yeah.
this. But I think the biggest one is that you should get paid.
Yes.
Don't you're not getting paid. It's a job.
Yes, it's a job.
You know, it's in. If we're talking about PhD trajectories here, it should be different from like a med school traditional med school or law school trajectory or business school trajectory. If you're doing research for a PhD, get paid. You should not be paying tuition. On top of not paying tuition, you should be getting a stipend to support yourself. If you are thinking about graduate school and you get an offer in which those things aren't guaranteed for you, then you're being undervalued and you're being taken advantage of in my opinion. You should not go to that program and instead go to a place where you're going to get paid.
Exactly. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, that's my biggest misconception. I don't think a PhD is worth it if you have to pay for things like tuition and you're not stipend.
Because if you already have the degree, especially in like an engineering field, you can already make enough money straight out of undergrad than take the loss and go to grad school.
Find some job with a bachelor's degree to the point where the opportunity cost of going to graduate school for a PhD without getting compensated is totally not worth it. Even if this is what you love to do, I would encourage you to take a year off, strengthen your application, and make sure you go somewhere where you're treated, with the respect that you should be in terms of I think another thing I'd like to dispel, because I think admissions is always a fascinating area for me because I've always had to think about, again, no one told me how admissions of these things work. How to write essays like this. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about graduate school admissions and getting into graduate school and applying and getting accepted, it's really not like undergraduate admissions where there's a whole committee maybe and they're trying to think of like your fit and they're reading your personal essays. It really is like finding a job. You're trying to be hired by like one person maybe, at least in the environmental engineering fields. I think people focus too much on, let me go to the website, let me see what the average GPA is, let me see what the average GRE score is. Oh, that doesn't fit me, I can't apply. I shouldn't even.
I've never heard of a program that turns down someone based on their GRE score. I think if you should more be looking at who is there, what type of work are they doing. If I find a professor I really like, could I be an asset to this professor based off my experience? You're never an asset to a professor because of your GRE score. Bottom line, right? But you will be an asset to a professor if you have the right background, experience, and motivation. Exactly. So look for that connection. Don't look at the average test scores and GPAs and stuff like that. Look for those connections. Reach out to those professors beforehand and say like, no, this is where I come from. I might want to be interested in working with you. Can we establish a dialogue? I think that's a good way. That might be a common misconception that many people have. And another big one, like if you don't get in, it's not really any reflection on you. Like that professor might not have funding or they might have too many students. You might be a great person, but wrong place, wrong time, right? I think sometimes we get a little too bogged down in things like test scores and stuff like that, and that's not really what school at its heart is about. I want to say. Agreed. And so thank you, Andrew, for being part of this interview. I enjoyed this, and thank you for sharing with us your story.
Happy to do it. This is great.
Awesome. Hello everyone, thank you for watching this interview featuring Andrew Kim. Please like and subscribe to the channel because that helps me so much and keeps me going with producing all of these videos for you. And please stay tuned for next week. I hope you enjoyed.